LSU has pulled the trigger, and Brian Kelly is out at LSU in the middle of his 4th season down there. Haven't even gotten to November. Excuse me. We're still in October. We haven't even gotten to November, and we've got massive, high-profile jobs coming open, and none more massive or more high-profile than Brian Kelly and LSU parting ways following that 24-point home loss to Texas A&M. And I think what ultimately the nail in the coffin for Brian Kelly wasn't the fact that they lost to Texas A&M, but it's the thought for the Baton Rouge faithful, for the Tiger faithful, of A&M coming in there, which is a team that's trying to level up in the SEC, whereas LSU feels like they are a top-tier SEC team. They have this tradition and belief that they own their stadium at night. It's the toughest place to play in all of college football, and it's a great environment, which it is, by the way. But then A&M comes in there and just starts rolling on them in the second half. They've got their band there. They've got a large contingent of A&M fans because that's a school with a passionate fan base that travels really well. They used to do it when they come up to Colorado when we were in the Big 12 together. But they go down to LSU and they travel really well. And at times in that fourth quarter, it was like, well, hold on. Is this like Kyle Field light? And for LSU fans, that's just a bridge too far. They're too proud for that. And I think that was the nail in the coffin, even maybe more so than the loss. And obviously the style of the loss plays into that. So we'll get to that in a moment. And obviously I'll bring you my top 10, later in the program. And obviously, A&M impressive, and they will move up in my poll. Where they will move up to, you'll have to wait and see. I think that this firing brings a lot of questions, though. And the first question I think that a lot of people have, or at least they ask of me, are you surprised of the timing of the firing? As we're getting these earlier and earlier, again, Penn State, Florida, now LSU, all coming open in October. And I will just say this, I am not surprised at the firing of all, or the timing, I should say, of all of these firings. Not at all, actually. Athletic directors are forced to act this way because of the structure of the sport. It is the business model that they are in. And so they have to react to current realities. And the current reality right now is that the structure of the calendar is forcing them to be prepared for roster building in the first week of December. Now, you guys have heard me. If you've listened to this show for any amount of time, you've heard me for years now lament the fact that I think that the calendar in college football is broken. And the calendar being broken, this is an unintended consequence of that. We're going to continue to have these. A few years ago, when they moved the signing period from early February to now the early signing period in early the first week of December, I thought that was a terrible move at the time. Still do. We should not be signing high school players in December. I understand some of the reasons for they want to get them into school for the spring semester of their senior year. We can debate whether that's great for those kids at another time, but I understand the timing from a logistics standpoint. But from a realistic standpoint, it is bad for the sport because of what we're seeing right now with some of these firings. So you've got the early signing day in early December, and then now you're going to have the transfer portal window, which is going to be a single window now rather than the dual window that we've had in the past. Just if you haven't been following along, it used to be open in the month of December and then again in the month of April. And now what we're going to get is that we're going to have a single transfer portal window open in January, which it's moved back a month, but it still kind of overlaps in this roster building and season timeframe. You see, here's the problem, is that you have to have your ducks in order if you're LSU or Penn State or Florida in order to be able to pull the trigger on a singular coach and his support staff in order to go take advantage of the early signing period and the transfer portal window, because that's the only way that you build your roster. You also have to have a plan in place and signal that plan to the rest of the boosters and the support staff and the support system around your program so that you can have the necessary resources to not only buy out your coach, but hire the next coaching staff and go out in the portal and have enough money to sign a good class. You know, there's a lot going on, but that's why we're getting these firings so early is an unintended consequence of us not having our ducks in order in college football from a calendar perspective. Why do most, not all, but most firings in the NFL happen after the regular season? Why? because everyone operates under the same structure, which is we're not building our roster for months. We know what the salary cap is. We know where that money is coming from, so we don't have to make a rash decision. So that's number one, is that the calendar, I think, is broken. The timing is not a surprise to me. They're forced into this in many ways. Do I like it? No. No, I don't. I wish that we could fix the calendar, but that is what it is at this point. There's another factor in all of this, and that is that boosters have more of a say now than they ever have. Now, this has been talked about over the last week or so by many out there. But I would just tell you this, is that in the past, athletic directors and coaches would raise a lot of money. And that money was generally used for facilities, personnel, not players before NIL, although in some places and cases it was used for players. But you get the gist of what I'm talking about. It was used for infrastructure of the program. Well, when you're investing in infrastructure, you understand as the person investing into that, or as a booster investing into that the return is long term. You're building an indoor facility because you hope that the indoor facility is going to lure recruits, 2 and 3 cycles into the future. You are building a locker room, doing an addition on a stadium. You need funds for that, but the people investing into that project or foundation, they have this understanding that the ROI, the return on investment, is not going to be immediate. But now it's very different because that money that you can give goes directly to a player. And we need this player. The conversation goes like this. Listen, we're about to lose this player in recruiting unless we can up our offer from $800,000 to $1.8 million. $1 million more dollars. And they're like, oh man, do I want to part ways with $1 million? I guess so. But guess what comes with that? An expectation that $1 million is going to be seen and felt on the field immediately, because that player is going to help us win games now. And so if I'm a person being asked for that amount of money, I probably own a business or have been very successful in business. And I understand that investment in a short term means that if that doesn't return, someone's got to pay for it. So now you have all these cooks in the kitchen. You have all of these opinions, and those opinions, they feel like they are warranted, right? And they're substantial. And listen, I'm not going to give another $1 million or another $5 million to this program unless that guy is gone. And so I think that an athletic director right now in the current state of college football has a lot more voices in his ear, and those voices tend to be more influential because of the resources that those voices have. Those are two reasons why I'm not surprised by this, the timing of this firing. When you think about the money being spent right now, Brandon Marcello tweeted out, and I thought this was wild when I saw this. He tweeted out, we are up to $167.9 million in total buyout money committed to fired FBS coaches in this cycle, and it's not even November. We haven't even gotten a final decision on Mike Norvell at Florida State. We haven't gotten a final, obviously, on Hugh Freeze at Auburn. That's not going well, and there are going to be others. This is wild. We are going to be north of 200, probably close to $250 million in buyout money, dead money. That is a staggering amount when you're talking about all of these programs around the country, and every single one of them, the athletic director will come up to me and I'll ask them, like, well, what is your biggest need? Oh, resources. We need money so bad. And they're going to spend $250 million on coaches to not coach. That is a staggering amount. Why? Why do we get this? Well, they're the most valuable piece. This is the college version of the NFL starting quarterback. Got to have that quarterback to win a Super Bowl. Well, you can't win in college football without a marquee coach. You just can't. So then it starts to beg the question as we talk about this carousel, like, okay, now let's start stacking this up a little bit. I know that I went a little bit long on the timing of it. If you start stacking up this job, let me just say this point blank as crisply as I possibly can. This is the best job available, period. In fact, I would put LSU in the top 3 jobs in all of college football. Now, some would argue with me on that. I firmly believe it's in the top 3, but I don't think that you can argue it's not in the top 5. So semantics here, but we're talking about at a minimum, a top 5 job in all of college football, which is staggering. And we've seen this job open up before. And because LSU opened up before, we saw Mel Tucker get a giant contract at Michigan State. We saw Jimbo Fisher get a giant contract at Texas A&M. Like, we've seen this song and dance before, except now it's coupled with other high-profile, marquee, top 10, 11, 12 jobs in the country in Penn State and Florida. So you've got some massive jobs open. I think you could claim like 30% of the top 10 best jobs in America are open right now in Penn State, Florida, and LSU. But LSU is really the cream of the crop. Again, I think that Texas and Ohio State are better jobs than LSU, not by much, but I can't think of another program that is. Some would argue with me that Georgia is a better job. Okay, that's fine. And I believe that that's also very close. And then some would argue that Alabama is a better job. I don't believe Alabama is a better job than LSU. I think LSU has more resources. And quite honestly, outside of Nick Saban's tradition there, like, LSU can be successful. Clearly, Alabama has won the most national championships in all of college football. They have a storied tradition, as tradition rich as any place in college football. They're in the center of a recruiting hotbed. It's not a bad job. It's a top 5 job in all of college football. I think LSU is a little better. I think they're financially more stable at LSU than Alabama. That's kind of where I sit. So at this point, you have to ask yourself, all right, where are we going here? If you're Scott Woodward, like, Woodward, what are you doing? Who are you calling? Okay, well, the only way that I can play that out is if I'm the athletic director. So if I'm the athletic director at LSU, let me just tell you what my process would be. And it wouldn't be that much different than Penn State, although the pool would be a little bit different. The first thing that I'm going to do, if I'm the athletic director at LSU, and like I said, LSU has a lot of resources, probably deeper resources than everyone actually realizes. Like deep resources, maybe top 1 or 2 resources in all of college football. And so money will not be a factor in this. I don't think it was a factor in Brian Kelly's. I think the structure of his buyout was probably more of what they were talking about, but I don't think money is going to be a factor in what they go after. Therefore, there's 2 people that are going to get calls, and I think that LSU is going to force them to turn down $15 million a year, and that is Urban Meyer and Nick Saban. I think both of those guys will get that call, and if I'm Scott Woodward, I think that you have to make that call. If I'm the AD, I'm making that call to both of those gentlemen. And by the way, if they both turn me down, great, and then we're going to have a really lengthy and quality discussion about the candidates that they really like around the country and the coaches that they've either worked with or coached against that they like, because I think that's a type of list that will really help me if I'm the athletic director. Okay, so those 2 guys are going to get the first 2 calls. And then it goes to maybe the more feasible ones, although who knows? Maybe one of those guys will be the next coach at LSU. And then you go to the next call. And here's the next call that is made. And I think the next call is going to be Dan Lanning. Dan Lanning obviously has a past in the SEC, and he's been successful there as a coordinator of the national champion Georgia team in 2021. Then he goes to Oregon, and he's been very successful building them into a perennial power. Last year, the undefeated number 1 seed in the college football playoff. He recruits well out of the portal. He recruits well out of high school. He's got great energy. Like, Dan Lanning is a home run. So he's going to get a call. And Oregon will probably have to match a $15 million a year offer. I think that's where LSU is going to be if they're talking about Urban Meyer, Nick Saban, or Dan Lanning. If Dan doesn't leave, and listen, I know that Dan really likes it in Eugene, and just a couple of years ago, he turned down Alabama. So, like, he's turned down this level of job prior. His family loves it in Oregon, and I think he loves the autonomy in Oregon, and he's building something that's very special and very well might end in a national championship this year. I think they have that caliber of team in terms of this year with Dante Moore at quarterback and that defense and how they can play. That's a call. And then my 4th call, and I think it's my final call, is going to be Lane Kiffin. And Lane Kiffin is going to get a call. And this is why Lane Kiffin, is going to be such a hot commodity, is that if you look around right now, I said 3 of the top 10 jobs in college football are now open. I can't remember a cycle in which we had this high profile of jobs open and ready and willing to spend money and ready to swing big. And yet I can't remember as thin of a talent pool in the coaching search. Lane's going to be at the top, and Dan Lanning is going to be at the top of everybody's list. Nick Saban's getting the call. Urban Meyer's getting the call. Bob Stoops might get a call because the list is thin. And this is where you have to ask yourself, if you're LSU, like, what's the best fit? Because what didn't work at LSU with Brian Kelly wasn't the fact that Brian Kelly's not a good football coach. It's that he wasn't a good fit at LSU. And candidly, we all knew it his first week on the job when he gave us that fake accent. We'll never be able to unhear that. Every time I saw him in an LSU shirt, that's what I thought of. And I tried not to. The guy's the all-time winningest coach at Notre Dame. He knows how to coach football. He didn't forget how to do it. He wasn't a good fit at LSU. Jimbo Fisher didn't forget how to coach football at Texas A&M after winning a national championship at Florida State. He wasn't a good fit at Texas A&M. And now Mike Elko, who maybe wasn't the sexiest hire of the entire, carousel that year at A&M, is a great fit at A&M. He understands it. He knows it. He loves it. And guess where they are? Sitting here in the top 5 in the country in college football. So that's a great fit, and it's working out. So LSU, I just talked about the big swings that they could take, but I will argue this last point. You don't make this hire, if I'm the athletic director, to win the press conference. You have to get a guy that fits your program, your fan base, and what you want to do at LSU. You can go take a huge swing, but if it's the wrong swing, you're going to be sitting right back here in 3 or 4 years doing the same thing over again, spending another $100 million to buy out another coach, even though Brian's not $100 million. It's $53 million. $53 million. Hey, guys, I'm really thankful that my wife is never like, hey, why didn't you coach? Because I think about it all the time. I'm like, I could go get fired. I mean, I really could. Fit is going to be very important for LSU. I think it's one of those things that if they get this right, this will return to a perennial power each and every year. And like I said, my calls, Saban, Urban Meyer, Dan Lanning, and then Lane Kiffin. Now, you could say, like, Lanning's not going to leave Oregon. And listen, I hope he doesn't. I really do. I hope he doesn't. He did turn down Alabama. LSU is a better job than Alabama. I think it is. I think it can be argued all you want. I know Bama fans would argue with me on that, but that's the way kind of I feel about it. And it boils down to resources.
Thank you for watching the Joel Klatt Show YouTube channel. And if you liked this clip, make sure to like it and subscribe to the channel. And you can stay up to date on all of my college football coverage.